Hey everyone, welcome to iCommunicate. If you've ever struggled with holding people accountable, coaching, and difficult conversations, you're in the right place. iCommunicate provides fresh perspectives and actionable insights to coach leaders, teams, and individuals. Welcome to iCommunicate. I am Mark Altman, founder and CEO of MindsetGo, and we are going to today explore what we call a plan for progress. And I'm joined, as always, by my immortal producer, Mike Kamali. Mike, great to have you with us, as always.
Oh, it's always great to be here, Mark. I look forward to it every time we get to record.
Now, I got to share a very quick story. I got a couple of stories to share to start this podcast today. And, Mike is a pickleball instructor. And so since our last podcast, we have done a pickleball lesson. I had my inaugural pickleball lesson with Mike. And yes, I am a pickleball follower. Like, you can make fun of me, you can say what you want, but I am a pickleball follower. And, I have never had a lesson before. I am very competitive. I am very much growth oriented, as you would expect as a coach. And what's interesting to me is I'm so competitive to be the best. As cliche as that sounds, I am truly competitive to be the best in everything I do in life. And like, I've played, a lot of the things I've done in my life have been self-taught, and I haven't put the energy and time into really excelling or becoming an expert at things in sports specifically. And so, like, I can hold my own. I played tennis growing up. I can hold my own, but I've always wanted to take lessons to see, if I could get better and what it would look like. So here's Mike. He agrees to do a lesson with me, and I am not just pumping his tires. I mean, I spent an hour with him, and he was such a great teacher. And this show today about a plan for progress. And the reason I'm starting out with this story is because one of the things Mike and I talk about as he works at MindsetGo, and he's already started to applying this as a pickleball instructor, as a coach, is when you're teaching someone something and you're coaching someone to do something, how do you know if they're actually getting it? Like, how do you know? Because I can look at Mike in those sessions. I'm like, thanks, Mike. That was really helpful. So what? It was helpful. Like, we don't know if he's going to apply, or I'm going to apply it. So I just wanted to share that experience with people as we get into the show today. I mean, yes, Mike was an amazing teacher, and I learned more in that hour collectively than I probably learned in any time anybody's ever taught me about anything in pickleball, my whole pickleball career, as short-lived as that is. But the point of this show is today, I want you to just have this ingrained in your mind. What's the plan? Like, what's the plan? If you're going to get better, there's got to be a plan. I had a mentor tell me years ago this expression, and the expression is, a goal without a plan is a wish, right? That was the expression. And it's true. Like, what's the plan? I said it on a recent podcast. It's worth repeating. If you are doing something you haven't done at all, aren't doing consistently, or aren't doing well, it's a change and it needs a plan. So if anybody's looking for a great pickleball instructor, please reach out to M. Kamali at MindsetGo.com, because he is moonlighting outside of his job at MindsetGo. So enough about that. So I want to start out with a story that really hit me a couple of years ago. And this story is something that we work with so many leaders and executives that are parents. And as you listen to this story, it's not really relevant. If you're not a parent, you'll still be able to relate to it, because if you're not a parent, you know what it was like to be a kid. So you just think about it from that angle if you need to. So this is a true story. My poor youngest son, Cole, I tell stories about him all the time. Like, if he actually listened to this podcast, he'd probably be like, really, Dad, you're telling that story? But no, he actually knows I tell this story, is the truth. So a couple of years ago, he's in college now. A couple of years ago, he came home on the first day of school. Okay. And I said, hey, how was school today? And he looked at me and goes, great. And I said, anything else? And he said, well, yeah, my history teacher, that class is going to be cake. And so I said, really? I said, you gleaned that in 45 minutes from the first day of school. Really? That's what you picked up already? And he goes, yeah. So I said, why do you say that? And he said, Dad, you should see the guy. He's checked out. He coaches hockey. He's into sports. You should see his room, Dad. You'd love him. He's all got sports stuff all over his room, memorabilia. Like he's just checked out. He's not even into it. So I said, okay. Now I knew I was going to meet the guy in a couple of weeks on open house night with teachers. So this is a big moment in this story because I'm going to interject something here that's really important as you listen to this story. If you're a parent, how many parents out there listen to the story that after their child comes home on the first day of school, says a class would be cake, and is likely to underestimate the difficulty of the class? As a parent in that moment, you'd say, Cole, you really ought not take that class lightly because it may not be as easy as you think. And then you go right into that writing reflex parenting mode, which kids tune out immediately. Like immediately. So think about if you would have said something like that there. Now, again, considering I do this for a living, you would hope and count on the fact that I would not do something like that. So what I actually said to Cole is, okay, well, we'll see if what you believe turns out to be true. I'm going to meet the guy in a couple of weeks. And can I just ask you one question before we end this conversation? Notice it was a question and not a statement. So I said, Cole, I'm just curious. Do you think it could hurt you to take this class lightly? I'm just asking. I'm just curious. And he goes, oh, I know what you're going to say, Dad, that I shouldn't take it lightly. I'm like, no, I didn't actually say that. I'm just asking you a question. So anyway, the moral to the story is he goes, yeah, no, I won't take it lightly. Fine. So I go to the parent-teacher conference 2 weeks in, and I meet the teacher, and I walk out, and I'm like, yep, he's checked out. There was not a doubt in my mind. Cole read the situation perfectly. So I come home, and I said, so I met your teacher, and I can see what you're saying. Like, I can see why you have that perspective. A great coaching technique, validation. So I said, I can see what you're saying. So again, I said, now, even though I'm seeing what you're saying, again, I want to ask you the question again. Do you think it could hurt you to take this lightly, even though I'm now validating you? No, I'm on it. Fine. So 2 months into the semester, guess what? I get a progress report from the school. Cole has a C- average in the class. So here we go now. Now, keep in mind, part of being a great coach is the term we use at MindsetGo is being emotionally agile. And emotionally agile means in English, responding and not reacting. So anyway, of course I get this progress report emailed to me on my computer. Cole's coming home from school that day. So now I'm irritated, frustrated. So Cole comes home from school and I said, hey, so I got a progress report. I see you've got a C- in the class. And I'm just curious, what's that about? With a curious and empathetic tone, not a frustrated and annoyed tone. So he says, well, Dad, like the teacher's a really hard grader. And I go, I literally, we're recording this in a video podcast. I literally put my hand out like this, like I was giving him the Heisman stiff arm. And I said, Cole, I'm going to ask the question again. Why did this happen? How did we get here that you had control of? Okay, because we're not going to blame. We're not going to make excuses. That's not how I raised you. So I'm just curious, what did you have control of? So he says, and I'm not making this up. He looks at me and he says, all right, Dad, well, if I'm going to be honest with you, the teacher caught me doing work for other classes during his class. And I said, oh. I said, well, that must have endeared you to him. I mean, that must have really, I said, Cole, you know the book you read, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie? Boy, that's a hell of a way to win friends and influence people. So he goes, yeah, he really wasn't happy. And a big part of our grade is participation. And my participation grade is a D. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of the story, and we're now at the part of the story of why I'm telling this story on this podcast. So pay very close attention. So I said, wow. I said, I'm just curious. Do you think there's an opportunity here to rebuild the relationship with the teacher, to earn the teacher's trust back? Not, you should do that. You need to do that. Curious question. Do you think there's an opportunity to do that? So Cole says, yeah, I'm with you. I do think that that's something I should do. So I looked at him just like this. And for all the coaching I do to people about using a curious and empathetic tone, I looked at him with a bad tone. And I go, Cole, frankly, I'm not that interested to know if you agree with me. I'm curious to know if you're actually going to do it. Because by telling me you agree with me does not imply action. It implies agreement. So I'm curious, is there a plan? What is the plan? What do you think you're going to do to approach this problem differently? And that's why I'm telling the story. Because all day, every day, I don't care who your relationship with is, whether it's your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your partner, your peer, your boss, someone who reports to you, your customer, it doesn't matter. When you are talking to someone and you are giving them constructive feedback, when you are asking them questions so they recognize blind spots, and so they recognize maybe the error in their approach, in their thought process, it doesn't matter if they agree with you. I mean, it matters. I shouldn't say it that way. It matters because foundationally, it's unlikely someone's going to take action if there isn't foundational alignment. So it does matter. I shouldn't say it like that. However, the point isn't that it doesn't matter. The point is alignment without action is just alignment. And I feel like when people coach, due to my experience in doing this for a dozen years now, I feel like it's often hard to get people to agree. It's often hard to get people to even align foundationally. There's this tendency when we're coaching people and giving them constructive feedback, there's a tendency of the human brain and nature that people respond to constructive feedback with defensiveness, with justification, with excuses, by shutting down. So it's almost like it's such a huge victory for people to actually even just foundationally align. So as a parent, when kids can typically be defensive, when Cole said, yeah, you know what, Dad, that's a good point. Like, I think there may be an opportunity. A lot of parents would be like, what a win. Like, they didn't fight me. They didn't defend. They didn't argue. And it is a win. It's a partial win. Okay. So I'm not minimizing or discounting. I'm saying that by itself is not enough. So we have come up with an acronym at MindsetGo, and it's called RAP. And it's spelled RAAP in this case. And we like it a lot, the acronym, not just because it fits the methodology, because when you do an effective coaching session, then one of the ways you can know it was effective is you can say, well, that's a wrap. And then you can actually walk through what that acronym looks like to go, wait a minute, was that an effective coaching session? And that's what we're going to talk about, because the takeaway from this podcast, beyond me making fun of Cole, is realistically, what is your way to self-evaluate whether you were an effective coach? What is the way that you go, God, did I really create impact there? Did I really inspire action? Did I really inspire change? And that's what that's a wrap is. So let's walk through what it is, okay? I'm going to walk you through what it stands for, and then we'll talk about how to apply it. All right, so RAAP, wrap. The R stands for recognition. Now, I've said this so many times over my career. The first non-negotiable step in habit change is self-awareness. It's recognizing the opportunity to change the habit. And Mike, I'm going to ask you to share some of your wisdom here, because not only do we have a lot of people listening to the show who like pickleball, but I'm going to give you context, and I'm going to have Mike share his methodology. He taught me, and he's smiling, and I think he already knows where I'm going with this. So recognition, recognize the opportunity to do things differently. So here's the interaction Mike and I had, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. So Mike's watching me and he says, Mark, it's really important to keep your paddle out in front of you, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I knew that, right? Agreeing with him, right? I knew that, right? And one of the things I want you to realize before I progress this story is sometimes I find when you're giving people feedback, sometimes alignment, where it is important, can create a filter. A lot of times when I coach people, they'll say things like, yeah, I do that already. Or, yeah, no, I knew that. And I'm like, okay. I think to myself, why are you telling me that? Like, why is that relevant to this discussion? Are you trying to prove that you already knew this? Like, what's the proof point? So just remember, when people are agreeable, it often also creates a listening filter, because if they think they're already doing something well or consistently, they may not recognize the opportunity to do it better, right? So anyway, back to the story. So Mike says, it's really important to have your paddle in front of you. Now, the irony in this is, the first person who taught me that was Mike's father. Okay, so who's also an avid pickleball player. So Mike's father had taught me that way back when. And guess what? When Mike started coaching me for the first time, guess what Mike noticed? Hadn't built the habit, which is why he had to tell me, because I hadn't built the habit. So Mike makes the comment. My response is, yeah, oh, damn, Mike, you're right. I knew that. I got to remember to do that. And Mike, with that said, how do you coach people to remember to do that?
So with this specifically, what we then did was address why it's important, because you have to cover why we need you to have that paddle up in front of you.
Yep.
And there's a plethora of reasons. One being you need to be able to protect yourself if the ball's coming at you quick. You need to be able to get into a ready position so you can go to either side of your body. And then from there, it's creating some form of method or pattern that you can repeat and make sure that you actually remember to do it.
Okay, now I'm going to stop you right there. We're going to finish the story in a minute. So I want you to, now this is a young professional here in Mike, okay? Listen very carefully, because he just said something that I consider profound and not obvious, okay? So he just said, the first thing you have to do, say it one more time, the first thing you have to do was
Establish why it's important.
the why, the context. Because for me to value creating the habit, for me to really be motivated to do it, I've got to see the benefit. I've got to understand the benefit of it. That's coaching at its core. Now, keep in mind, and I think Mike and I even had the banter that day. Remember, part of what I'm covering in these podcasts is the approach for Mike to say, look, Mark, the reason why you need to do this is because of blank, blank, and blank. Or should Mike say to me, hey, Mark, I'm glad you see the value in it. And do you mind if I ask you, why do you think it's important? And he did. And he did. And so this is a nuance of coaching where we keep coming back to leading with questions and not statements. But it is, if he tells me the benefits of it, he's now my parent. Okay? If he asks me what I see as the benefits, I can make the connection in my brain on why I would prioritize it. So I just wanted to acknowledge that he said that before he finishes. And then before I go back to him, the second thing he's leading up to is some kind of cue, right? Some kind of, like, okay, when this happens, right? And with that said, I'm going to turn it back to him. So Mike, expand on what you were saying before I stopped you.
Yeah. So the pattern that we developed was clapping when your paddle reaches the middle. So if you're hitting a forehand, you bring it up and you actually clap that paddle against your hand. If you're hitting with the backhand, we push it forward. So we're always keeping it in front of us. But that's just one of the methods. And when you actually started implementing it, we saw that you were actually able to also finish your stroke, and it helped build on other aspects that need to be improved on.
And you call this the clap method, I think, was that right?
Yeah, that's what we went with.
So step one, why should I care? Like, why would we? Step two, ask me, don't tell me. Step 3 is model, which he did, the clap method. Step 4 is create some kind of environmental cue, right? So I know what to make the connection with. In step 5, he, after demonstrating and modeling it, he made me apply it, right? And he watched me and gave me feedback, and we practiced it. Now, for some of you who play sports or pickleball or coach, you may be sitting there going, well, of course, that's what you do. And maybe, I'm just saying that when you're coaching human beings in the workplace and you're asking them to do things that they haven't been doing, I'm not so sure it's that innate and obvious for people. I know it isn't, because the reason why our business has grown so much is because it is a core competency and skill lacking for so many people. So the R in RAP is, how do we create that self-awareness? How do we recognize the opportunity to use the clap method? When I'm playing pickleball, when Mike's not there, something has to click in my brain to go, oh, my paddle's by my side. Like, it's not out in front of me. And he gave me a method to keep it in front of me, right? Like, that's the thing. So if you're the kind of person who is struggling and you're reacting and not responding, right? Well, what's the clap method for responding versus reacting? You have to realize in the moment, you have to become self-aware that you're frustrated, that why you're frustrated, what would be the value in responding and not reacting. Like, that's what we're talking about. So the R in RAP is recognize the opportunity to do things differently. Okay. The A is assess. And assess meaning, what are your choices to solve a problem? I mean, I'm going to tell you, I've had a couple of coaching sessions earlier in the day here today. And I'm going to tell you, in just those 2 hours and those 2 coaching sessions, I must have asked my client at least 3-4 times in those sessions, well, what choices do you think you have here to solve this problem? And I've said this on past podcasts. We tend to believe that there's only 2 choices to solve a problem. And I'm going to give you an actual tangible example so you really can feel this and it can resonate with you. Let's say you have a scenario where you have a CEO and a CFO. Doesn't matter. Okay. And the CFO feels like when there are employee issues at a high level that, and actually, I'm going to give you even a more specific example. Let's say at a company, a critical employee is threatening to quit. Okay? Threatening to quit. And this is an employee that's really valuable to the company. You don't want that person to quit. Now, in my opinion, and it is an opinion, that if I had a valuable employee that was threatening to quit, and I didn't want that person to quit, as owner of the company, I would want to meet with that employee. I would want to be involved in trying to, I don't know whether it's convince the employee to stay, but to try to solve the problem. Okay. However, the problem in this case is, in the scenario I'm painting, the CFO of the company thinks my involvement would do more harm than good. So he politely and respectfully says, I'll take care of it. I got this. Now, the problem in the back of my mind is I'm conflicted, because I feel like, as owner of the company, I want to make a statement to this employee that they're important, they're valuable. It's not about whether my CFO could handle it, has the skills to handle it, or is empowered. It's, I think I should be involved. So in coaching a CEO or coaching the CFO, that CFO only sees 2 choices. I involve the CEO or I don't involve the CEO. 2 choices. And to me, there's an obvious third choice that's being missed here. That if the CFO, assuming you have a good relationship with the CEO, if the CFO has concerns that the CEO may say the wrong thing or make the situation worse, why can't they sit down and prepare for the conversation and brainstorm, hey, because the CEO should be involved here, but how do we make this meaningful? How do we make this impactful? So you see what I mean? There's a third choice. And I think a lot of times when we use the first A in RAP, assess, you have to actually believe there are more than one choice is more than one choice to solve the problem. So the A is identify at least three choices to address the issue. And not only the three choices, but are there resources available? What resources are available that could solve the problem? And resources could be people, it could be tools, it could be strategies, it could be a lot of things. So that's the first A in RAP. The second A in RAP is action. What actions need to be taken, and what is the top of mind strategy to remember? Well, the action is to keep the paddle in front of me, and the top of mind strategy is the clap method. That's an example of that. So the second A is action. And the P is what's the plan to implement the action, right? Which is really the clap method. So let me just recap. So this is very succinct. And then I'm going to finish with some examples before we wrap up this show. Okay. So recognize the opportunity to do things differently. Believe you can, right? Believe you can, but recognize self-awareness. The A, assess the actual options, choices that you have to do it differently. Second A in RAP is action. What actions need to be taken to be successful? And the P is what's the plan? Because I can take these actions, but I haven't been doing these at all. I haven't been doing them consistently, and I haven't been doing them well. So I better come up with a plan to implement those actions. That's a RAP. That's what the RAP is. Now, I'm going to give you two examples, okay, so you can see if you were coaching a person, how this would play out. Scenario one is you're coaching a person that is struggling with time management. They can be controlling. They're not delegating enough. And it's impacting not only their effectiveness, it could be stalling the company from reaching financial goals. It could be stalling development of team members because they're not getting enough opportunities, etc. So here's how RAP works. If I was coaching Mike on using the RAP method with someone delegating, I would say that the first thing is that person Mike in this case, has to recognize when there are opportunities to delegate. He would need to stop what he's doing in the middle of the day and go, wait, I could delegate this. Like, I don't need to be doing this. And as a matter of fact, if I am doing this and not delegating, it's actually not aligned with the primary functions of my job because I should be thinking more strategically. I should be working at a high level. And if I don't delegate this, I may not feel fully confident, but A, what are my choices here? Assess the choices. So the choices are, geez, who do I have at the company I could delegate this to? Geez, well, everybody's busy. I feel bad delegating. Yeah, okay. Let's get over that initially. And then who are the choices? What resources are available for that person to be effective if I did delegate this? Do we have success templates? Do we have SOPs? Do we have videos? Do we have other people that are experts on this that could help them? What resources are available? So my choice is continue to do this myself, delegate it to the person, or if I'm having trust or misgivings about delegating, what other choices do I have? So that's that. The second A, which is the action, what are three things that Mike could do to delegate? Like, all right, so Mike, I'm going to recognize opportunities to delegate. Well, let's be proactive. What are some things you could delegate that if we were to make a list, and Mike says, oh, Mark, I actually have a list. I've just been procrastinating. There's three things I could delegate. Great. Let's get to the P in the RAP. And what would be the plan to delegate those things? Mike, what if we did one a week for the next 3 weeks? Does that sound like a plan? That's how RAP works with delegation. That's an actual success model for how to use RAP with delegation. Now, that one's a little easier. So I'm going to finish with a much harder one. Ready? This is how the harder one works. So this is the RAP with someone who's reactive, someone who's not managing their emotions. So here's how it works. The R in wrap would be the person would have to recognize when they get triggered and why. So if Mike was, one of the things we preach at Mindset Go is setting painfully clear expectations. So Mike and I have talked about that. So let's pretend Mike starts sending emails and forgets to send painfully clear expectations, and I'm frustrated. So if I was using the R and wrap and coaching myself, I would be like, why am I frustrated here? I am frustrated. So I'm recognizing that I'm triggered, and why am I frustrated? And frankly, if I was being honest with myself, which I'd like to do, I would probably say I'm frustrated because I don't feel like he's prioritizing this core behavior. I don't think he has a plan. Hint, I don't think he has a plan to implement painfully clear expectations. So that's what R, recognizing triggers. Why am I upset? What am I feeling and why am I feeling that? Okay. The A, what choices do I have in the moment? Or I could send a snarky email to Mike and I could say, well, geez, I thought we talked about setting painfully clear expectations. That would certainly be a choice. I could look inward before blaming outward, and I could go, geez, what's my role in this? Because the likelihood Mike has been sitting at his desk maliciously plotting against me and saying, how can I upset Mark today? I know what I'll do. I won't set painfully clear expectations. Yeah, I don't think that's what's going on. And if you know Mike, you know that's definitely not going on. So the question becomes, choice number 2 is discern what is my role in this problem? How am I contributing to this problem? And choice number 3 is just to talk to him, coach him. Hey, Mike, I noticed you sent a couple emails in the last couple of days where they haven't been painfully clear expectations. Where are you struggling to build that habit? What's in the way? Mike, should we come up with some kind of clap method so you can, does everybody get my point? Like that's your choices. So when I say that first A is recognize your choices, that's what I mean. I'm modeling it for everybody right now. Like this is what I'm talking about. 3 choices. The second A is, again, Mike, this is what I want you to do, okay? When you're feeling triggered, okay, tell me if you're open to this. Notice it's a question and not a statement. When you become self-aware that you're triggered and upset, in that moment, would you be willing to, instead of doing what you're doing now and sending a snarky or a passive-aggressive email to someone, which Mike doesn't do, by the way, but instead of doing that, would you be open to coming to me? That's the action I'd like you to take. You could come to me and vent to me instead of to a peer. Heck, you could type up an email and just not send it so you get your thoughts out of your head. Would you be open to doing a couple of those, either or both of those things? Mike says, yes, I'd be willing to give it a try, to which I would respond, I don't know what that means, because try is not it's an unclear action. So then we get to the P in the wrap was, well, how will you know if you're actually trying? What's the plan? If you're going to actually prioritize that, Mike, and you're going to either type up that email or you're going to come to me, how will you remember? What's the plan? How will you know to do that in that moment? Is it a sticky note? Is it a clap method cue? What is it? That's the plan. So, look, as a final thought for this show today, okay, the biggest takeaway is when you're coaching people, no matter who it is in your life, if they are agreeing, if you have the foundational alignment and there is no plan, your likelihood of success is very low, not zero, and low. So please remember this saying. I don't want you to say to another person in a condescending way, what's the plan? And I want you to say, hey, appreciate your willingness and flexibility on this. What's the best way to approach this? What kind of plan do you think we need to integrate this habit and this routine? So that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. And with that said, Mike, thank you for another great production of iCommunicate. And for Mike Kamali, I'm Mark Altman. We'll see you next time.